In my opinion, a successful moorland walk in the winter requires some decent weather, not only on the day itself, but also in the lead up to that day. Our walk qualifies on all aspects. The good weather has not only brought good conditions, but also a well-attended walk, with 19 ramblers in all. From the car park, our walk takes us up the valley, between Belstone Tor and Cosden Hill, more or less following the River Tor itself and keeping just outside the firing range. On reaching Steeperton Gorge, we cross the River Tor and the Steeperton Brook. We then head up Mether Hill and over towards Hound Tor before passing the Stone Circle and heading along the indicated pathway to the Stone Row. Just a short distance from there is the dry stone wall enclosures where we have lunch. Following lunch, we leave the moor and head back towards the River Tor, through Skag Wood, following the river through Belstone Cleeve and back to Belstone itself, a distance of approximately 9.5 miles. We initially travel through the village of Belstone, making our way towards Belstone Common. Belstone is recorded in the Domesday Book as Bellastam. It lies around 990 feet above sea level. The parish church is dedicated to St Mary and dates back from the 13th century and has priests recorded from 1260. Wonderful. For the first 2 miles or so, our pathway is a wide stony track following the bottom of the valley. No danger of anyone getting lost here, hopefully. Looking to our right, there are a number of well-camouflaged army personnel, quite difficult to see amongst the rock glitter. On the east side of us is Cosden Hill, and on the west side is Belstone Tor and Higher Tor. When we reach the head of the valley, we're going to need to cross those 2 streams I mentioned earlier. Let's hope the waters haven't risen too much. The stone track gradually changes to a broad grass track, and the terrain is quite soft in places.
Show your beard!
Strung it out a little bit. That's a reservoir of some description. Sited close to the valley path are what appears to be mine shafts or small reservoirs. One of them is fenced off. No information is available as to exactly what they are.
Firing range just up there.
Always the ponies. In front of us, our initial destination, Steeperton Gorge, with the River Tor running down into the valley.
That's where we're supposed to cross, but we ain't going to be able to do that. We're going to have to move up the stream a little bit to the right and cross up there. You've got to follow these at the moment. You won't get across there.
The 2 streams we need to cross are the upper part of the River Tor and the Steeperton Brook. Crossing streams or rivers should generally be avoided, but in this instance it can't be helped without going a completely different route.
The other one's gone too deep, Gray.
We actually crossed this stream a few days ago on a recce, in a different place, but now the waters have risen, making that particular crossing unusable.
Looks like a coffee stop. At least it's a little bit out of the wind anyway. Hello.
Just as we're sitting down to have our coffee break, the firing started on the range.
Getting ready to go again. We've got to cross another stream now. Going to cross over by this tree up here, I think.
Our second stream crossing, and this time it's Steeperton Brook, and is helped by a convenient tree growing on the bank.
Difficult stream to cross. They're all doing pretty well though. I didn't get that, Norman. Nearly had you. You think so?
I was just balancing, he grabbed me under the arm and pulled me.
From Steeperton Brook, up Mether Hill has no real pathways.
Difficult walking up here.
Not even animal tracks.
Tufty.
Rough walking over classic grassy tufts with deep pockets and mixed in with bracken in places. Ankle twisting terrain.
Wow. That's something else, Pete. I think the flag's flying up there. You must have heard the gunshots when I was filming earlier.
Unfortunately, more of this uneven terrain, but this soon becomes fairly flat, more even ground, although quite wet.
Quite boggy area that we're actually walking over at the moment, but we're aiming for another track, which is behind me.
It's now a case of striking out over the moorland. We're heading for a broad, well-trodden track, which we've used previously. It's indicated on the Ordnance Survey map.
A little easier going now. Once you get out of the tufty grass and the boggy areas, it's not too bad. The views are tremendous.
We've managed to find the track, which is fairly easy to follow, if not rather wet in places.
Here comes the stone circle.
In 1896, there were only 13 stones standing here. The Dartmoor Exploration Committee re-erected 5 of the stones at that time. I've been unable to discover what was the thinking behind erecting this stone circle. The history seems very sparse.
In front of his Cosden tour, we're going to skirt round to the right, although you can probably see a little tiny track that goes up there. And up that way is a little hound tour.
The path now follows quite a deep cleft, parts of which are very wet indeed.
Here come our valiant walkers. Hope they're enjoying it. I'm sure they are. Castle Drogo right over there. It's all right.
Yes.
Castle Drogo, somewhere in the distance.
I think we've all got the message, Norman. You've grown a beard. At this point, the indicated track becomes very wet and quite boggy in places. In an endeavour to find a drier route, we skirt around the main path.
Yes.
Keep going round and trying to miss the boggy areas, but not too bad. We'll get there in the end.
There isn't a lot of difference here in the conditions we faced on the main track. Perhaps a little better, but not a lot. Only a short distance is necessary for the diversion, and we soon head back to our main route.
I think we're coming down to meet the original track now. Very shortly anyway. Our friend's got an important birthday coming up shortly. I think we've come through the worst of the bog now, and it's a pretty straightforward track till we come to the stone row. Still going in our deep cleft in the terrain here. We've got two deep clefts, but we're going to come out at Stone Row very shortly. Got Stone Row here.
This is not one stone row, but triple stone rows.
Get a better indication now for what it's all about. I think they're all enjoying this walk immensely. It certainly is a fantastic day for it.
They are headed by a stone cairn. The cairn was partially excavated and two cists or graves were found. One was intact, whilst the other one had been robbed of its stone coverings.
I didn't do it on purpose.
And the length of the rows is around 146 to 175 metres, depending where you measure from. Some of the stones were re-erected in 1896 by R.H. Worth and Sabine Baring-Gould of the Dartmoor Exploration Committee. From the stone rows is a relatively short distance to a number of dry stone granite wall enclosures, which I must assume were to contain cattle or sheep.
Round the other side of that one, Graham, perhaps? Yeah, it was.
What is striking about
There we go.
them is their height and how well they're built. Information on who built them and why is scarce. Irrespective of who built these walls and why, they do provide us with some shelter from the cold wind. I mentioned earlier that Brian is shortly going to be 80 years old, or 80 years young is it? I hope you won't mind if I say that to be walking on this type of walk at 80 deserves congratulations, and long may it continue.
Gonna come down off the moor a little bit now.
The surface here, to say the least, is rough. The top has been worn away by surface water runoff.
Coming into the trees now. We should get some of our walkers coming through in a second. Hopefully, anyway. Here they come.
The next part of our walk follows lanes and farm stone tracks, leaving the moor for a short distance before returning to it.
A bit of a stream to walk through.
We're heading generally towards South Zeal, but turn off and head over to Skag Warren before descending into Skag Wood.
It's quite a steep part of the walk, this. It seems to go on for quite a while. How are you doing then? How are you doing?
We're back on the moor, but only for a short distance.
We'll turn off the main track, which is up there, and we're going and heading over to the river. Wow, these views are out of this world, really. Wow.
We're now coming up to Skag Wood. The pathway is initially quite steep, but manageable.
It's really steep sort of pathway leading. It goes down about halfway towards the river, and then we continue horizontally. In places, a little bit tricky, but well within the capabilities of the group.
And although we now follow the river Tor, we are quite a ways above it, but gradually descend to the river and cross it.
You look wonderful.
This looks quite a nice accessible part of the river, and I get the feeling it's very popular during the summer months. This is a good opportunity to have a drinks break before continuing on through the wood. The last part of the walk involves climbing up to a higher path before making our way back to Belstone.
You're going to come in a minute. Another bridge there. I wanted to go over the other side, but we don't at the moment. Every now and again we get a glimpse of it through the trees. He's gone back. No, we're not joking. Normally it's me who does that type of thing, Graham.
Yeah, but you've got Joe, you see.
Yes, I know. I know.
Graham decides to go back and wait for Norman while he retrieves his walking pole. Meanwhile, our group of walkers have to negotiate an uphill track to reach the main pathway that leads back to Belstone village. It may be steep, but it's quite short.
Wow. We've certainly gone full circle today. Just completing the final part of our loop as we come in back into Belstone.
Belstone is in sight again, and it just remains for us all to make our way back to the car park to finish the walk.
Eagle House, huh? Well, it looks like another walk is over. And boy, was it a cracking walk. I think everyone's really enjoyed it. Bit of hard work here and there, bit of bog here and there, but fantastic. See you next time.